Hello guys, welcome back to My Fluency Journey. And this is live book reading session. And today we are reading Sapiens last chapter, the end of Homo sapiens, right? So yeah, so please be ready with a notebook or something so that you can eventually learn or build a new vocabulary, right? So thank you so much, and we'll start soon. So please bring pencil and highlighter so that you can mark uh, anything that you require or that you want, that it is something special or that word is a very good, right? So yeah, let's start. So yeah, so the end of Homo sapiens. So right, this book begins by presenting history as the next stage in the continuum of physics to chemistry to biology. Sapiens are the subject of the same physical forces, chemical reaction and natural selection process that govern all living organisms or all living beings. Natural selection may have provided Homo sapiens with a much larger playing field than it has given to any other organisms, but the field has still had its boundaries. The implication has been that no matter what their efforts and achievements, sapiens are incapable of breaking free of their biologically determined limits. But at the dawn of 21st century, this is no longer true. Homo sapiens is transcending those limits. It is now beginning to break the laws of natural selection, replacing them with the laws of intelligent design. For close to 4 billion years, every single organism on the planet evolved subject to natural selection. Not even one was designed by an intelligent creator. The giraffe, for example, its long neck thanks to competition between archaic giraffes rather than to the whims of a super intelligent beings. Proto-giraffes, who had longer necks, had access to more food and consequently produced more offspring than did those with shorter necks. Nobody, certainly not the giraffe, said a long neck would enable giraffe to munch leaves of the treetops. Let's extend it. The beauty of Darwin's theory is that it doesn't need to assume an intelligent designer to explain how giraffe ended up with long necks. For billions of years, intelligent design was not even an option because there was no intelligence which could design things. Microorganisms, which until quite recently were the only living things around, are capable of amazing feats. A microorganism belonging to one species can incorporate genetic codes from a completely different species into its cell and thereby gain new capabilities such as resistance to antibiotics. Yet, as best we know, microorganisms have no consciousness, no aims in life, no ability to plan ahead. But yeah, we have some purpose, some aim in your life, some goal in life, right? At some stage, organisms such as giraffe, dolphins, chimpanzees, and Neanderthals evolved consciousness and the ability to plan ahead. But even if Neanderthal fantasized about fowl so fat and slow moving that he could just scoop them whenever he was hungry, he had no way of turning that fantasy into reality. He had to hunt the birds that had been naturally selected. The first crag in the old regime appeared about 10,000 years ago during the agricultural revolution. Sapiens who dreamed of fat, slow moving chickens discovered that if they mated the fattest hen with the slowest cock, some of their offspring would be both fat and slow. If you mated those offspring with each other, you could produce a line of fat, slow birds. It was a race of chickens unknown to nature, produced by the intelligent and not of god but of human. Still, compared to an all-powerful deity, Homo sapiens had limited design skills. Sapiens could use selective breeding to detour around and accelerate the natural selection process that naturally affected chickens, but they could not introduce completely new characteristics that were absent from the genetic pool of wild chickens. In a way, the relationship between Homo sapiens and chicken was similar to many other symbiotic relationships that have so often arisen on in nature. Sapiens exerted peculiar Peculiar, peculiar. Okay, let's know the meaning of peculiar, right? Peculiar means strange, right? Yeah, I already know that. Just confirming. Selective pressure. Selective pressure on chickens that cause the fit, that cause the fit and slow. Wants to proliferate, proliferate. Just as pollinating bees select flowers, causing the bright flower, colorful ones to proliferate. Proliferate. To grow or increase rapidly. Okay. Today, the 4 billion year old regime of natural selection is facing a completely different challenge. In laboratories, in laboratories throughout the world, scientists are engineering living beings. They break the laws of natural selection with impunity, unbridled even unbridled even by an organism's original characteristics. Eduardo Cac, a Brazilian bioartist, decided in 2000 to create a new work of art, a fluorescent green rabbit. Cac contacted a French laboratory and offered it a fee to engineer a radiant bunny according to his specification. The French scientists took a run-of-the-mill white habits embryo, implanted in its DNA of a gene taken from a green fluorescent jellyfish, and voila, one green fluorescent rabbit for Le Mongier. Keck named the rabbit Alba. It is impossible to explain the existence of Alba through the laws of natural selection. She is the product of intelligent design. Oh, we should know that green rabbit Alba. Is it actually exists? Oh, it actually existed in the world. Oh, fluorescent. Nice, bro. Okay. It is impossible to explain the existence of Alba through the laws of natural selection. She is the product of intelligent design. She is also a harbinger of things to come. Harbinger. Okay. Something that signals the approach of another. Foreigner or precursor. Foreigner. Indicator of things to come. If the potential alpha signifies it realized in full, and if humankind doesn't annihilate itself, meanwhile, the scientific revolution might prove itself far greater than a mere historical revolution. It may turn out to be the most important biological revolution since the appearance of life on Earth. After 4 billion years of natural selection, Alba stands at the dawn of a new cosmic era, in which life will be ruled by intelligent design. If this happens, the whole of human history up to that point might, with hindsight, be reinterpreted as a process of experimentation and apprenticeship, apprenticeship that revolutionized the game of life. Such a process should be understood from a cosmic perspective of billion of years rather than from a human perspective of millennia. Biologists the world Biologists the world over are locked in battle with the intelligent design movement, which oppose the teaching of Darwinian evolution in school and claims that biological complexity proves there must be a creator who all biological details in advance. The biologists are right about the past, but the proponents of intelligent design might but ironically be right about the future. Proponents is like proponents. Yeah, I think it should be components. People, okay, but the proponents of intelligence, the people who support. Okay, at the time of writing, the replacement of natural selection by intelligent design could happen in any of the three ways: through biological engineering, cyborg engineering. Cyborg are beings that combine organic with non organic parts, or the engineering of inorganic life. Okay, of mice and men. Biological engineering is deliberate human intervention on the biological level, implanting a gene, for example, aimed at modifying an organism's shape, capabilities, needs, or desires in order to realize some preconceived cultural ideas such as the artistic predilections of Duardocac. There is nothing new about biological engineering per se. People have been using it for millennia in order to reshape themselves and other organisms. A simple example is castration. Humans have been castrating bulls for perhaps 10,000 years in order to create oxen. Oxen are less aggressive and are thus easier to train to pull plugs. Humans have also castrated their own young males to create soprano singers with enchanting voice and eunuchs who could safely be entrusted with overseeing the sultan's harem. But recent advances in our understanding of how organism work, down to the cellular and nuclear level, have opened up previously unimaginable possibilities. For instance, we can today not merely castrate a man, castrate. What is castrate? This word is used so much time. Castrate. This word is used for so much time in this book. Remove the testicles. Okay, but also change his sex through surgical or hormonal treatments. But that's not all. Consider the surprise, disgust, and concern, consternation, 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 a state of anxiety and confusion. Okay. Okay. That ensued when in 1996 the following photograph appeared in newspaper on and television. Oh, you can see that photo. You should see that photo, right? Okay. So yeah, I will read the picture caption. A mouse on whose back scientists grew an ear made of kettle cartilage cells. It is an airy echo of the lion statue from the Stidal cave. 30,000 years ago, humans were already fantasizing about combining different species. Today, they can actually produce such chimeras. Photoshop was not involved. It's an untouched photo of a real mouse on whose back scientists implanted kettle cartilage cells. The scientists were able to control the growth of the new tissue, shaping it in this case into something that looks like a human ear. The process may soon enable scientists to manufacture artificial ears, which could then be implanted in humans. Even more remarkable wonders can be performed with genetic engineering, which is why it raises a host of ethical, political, and archaeological issues. And it's not just right? Not just pious. Monotheists whose object that man should not answer God's rule. Pious. Pious is means very religious, right? Whose this pious is one of those words that walks the line between sincere devotion and social posturing. Very religious, right? Deeply religious, deeply religious and devout. Many confirmed atheists are no less shocked by the idea that scientists are stepping into nature's shoes. Animal rights activists decry the suffering caused to lab animals in genetic engineering experiments and to the farmyard animals that are engineered in complete disregard of their needs and desires. Human rights activists are afraid that genetic engineering might be used to create Superman who will make serve of the rest of us. Jeremiah offered apocalyptic vision of biodictatorship that will clone fearless soldiers and obedient workers. The prevailing feeling is that too many opportunities are opening too quickly and that for our ability to modify genes is outpacing our capacity for making wise and far-sighted use of the skill. The result is that we are at the present using only a fraction of potential of genetic engineering. Most of the organisms now being engineered are those with the weakest political lobbies: plants, fungi, bacteria, insects. For example, lines of E. coli, a bacterium that lives symbiotically in the human gut and which makes headlines when it gets out of the gut and cause deadly infections, have been genetically engineered to produce biofuel. E. coli and several species of fungi have also been engineered to produce insulin, thereby lowering the cost of diabetes treatment. A gene extracted from an arctic fish has been inserted into potatoes, making the plants more frost resistant. Frost resistant. A few mammals have also been subject to genetic engineering. Every year, the dairy industry suffers billions of dollars of damages due to mastitis, a disease that strikes dairy cow udders. Scientists are currently experimenting with a genetically engineered cows whose milk contains lysostefin. It biochemically attacks bacteria responsible for the disease. The pork industry, which has suffered from failing sales because consumers are wary of unhealthy fats in ham and bacon, has hopes for a still experimental line of pigs implanted with genetic material from a worm. The new gene causes the pigs to turn bad omega 6 fatty acid into its healthy cousin omega 3. Oh, means okay, means a great research is going on, right? The next generation of genetic engineering will make pigs with good fat look like child's play. Genetic sticks, genetic sticks, genetic scientists, genetics have managed not merely genetics have not managed not merely to extend sixfold the average life expectancy of worm, but also to engineer genius mice that display much improved memory and learning skills. Voles are small, stout rodents resembling mice, and most varieties of voles are promiscuous. But there is one species in which boy and girl voles are lasting and monogamous relationships. Genetics claims to have isolated the genes responsible for whole monogamy. If the addiction of a gene can turn a whole Don Juan into a loyal and loving husband, are we far off being able to genetically engineer not only the individual abilities of rodent but also the social structures? Okay, now the next topic is the return of Neanderthals. But genetics do not only want to transform living lineages, they aim to revive extinct creatures as well, and not just dinosaurs as in Jurassic Park. A team of Russian, Japanese, and Korean scientists has recently mapped the genome of ancient mammoth found frozen in Siberian ice. They now plan to take a fertilized egg cell of a present-day elephant, replace the elephantine DNA with a reconstructed mammoth DNA, and implant the egg in the worm. of an elephant. After about 22 months, they expect the first mammoth in 5,000 years to be born. But why stop at mammoths? Professor George Church of Howard University recently suggested that with the completion of the Neanderthal Genome Project, we can now implant reconstructed Neanderthal DNA into a sapien ovum, thus producing the first Neanderthal child in 30,000 years. Church claimed that he could do the job for a paltry $30 million. Several women have already volunteered to serve as surrogate mothers. What do we need Neanderthals for? Some argue that if we could study live Neanderthals, we could answer some of the most nagging questions about the origins and uniqueness of Homo sapiens. By comparing a Neanderthal to a Homo sapien brain and mapping out where their structure differ, perhaps we could identify what biological changes produce consciousness as we experience it. And there is an ethical reason too. Some have argued that if Homo sapiens were responsible for the extinction of Neanderthal, it has moral duty to the resurrect, 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 resurrect them. And having some Neanderthal around might be useful. Lots of industrialists would be glad to pay one Neanderthal to the menial work of two sapiens. According to legend, to bring back to life. Okay, Neanderthal Genome Project. Let's search. Is any human being is produced or not? I don't think yet. Okay, let's see. Hmm. Okay, but why stop even at Neanderthals? Why not go back to Gore's drawing board and design a better sapiens? The abilities, needs, and desires of Homo sapiens have a genetic basis, and the sapiens genome is no more complex than that of wolves and mice. The mouse genome contains about 2.5 billion nucleobases, the sapien genome about 2.9 billion bases, meaning the latter is only 14% larger. In the medium range, perhaps in a few decades, genetic engineering and other forms of biological engineering might enable us to make far-reaching alterations not only to our physiology, immune system, and life expectancy, but also to our intellectual and emotional capabilities. If genetic engineering can create genius mice, why not genius humans? If it can create monogamous wolves, then why not hardwired to remain faithful to their partners? Monogamous wolves. What is monogamous? Let's see. I think it's stick to the one partner, right? Don't be so discover where individual has only one partner at a time. Okay. The cognitive revolution that turned Homo sapiens from an insignificant ape into the master of the world did not require any noticeable change in physiology or even in size and external shape of sapiens' brain. It apparently evolved no more than a few small changes to internal brain structure. Perhaps another small change would be enough to ignite a second cognitive revolution, create a completely new type of consciousness, and transform Homo sapiens into something altogether different. True, we still don't have the acumen to achieve this. Acumen is enough resources or something like that, right? Keen insight to achieve this. But there seems to be no insurmountable technical barrier preventing us from producing superhumans. The main obstacle are the ethical and political objections that have slowed down research on humans. And no matter how convincing the ethical arguments may be, it is hard to see how they can hold back the next step for long, especially if What is at stake is the possibility of prolonging human life indefinitely, conquering incurable diseases, and upgrading our cognitive and emotional abilities. What would happen, for example, if we developed a cure for Alzheimer's disease that, as a side benefit, could dramatically improve the memories of healthy people? Would anyone be able to halt the relevant research? And when the cure is developed, could any law enforcement agency limit it to Alzheimer's patient and prevent healthy people from using it, or quest you per memorize? It's unclear whether bioengineering could really recircuit the Neanderthals, but it would very likely bring down the curtain on Homo sapiens. Tinkering with our own genes won't necessarily kill us, but we might fiddle with Homo sapiens to such an extent that we would no longer be Homo sapiens. We might fiddle with. Fiddle means play with, right? Okay, play with. Okay, and constant verb is or to play or fidget with, right? Okay, now the next topic is bionic life. There is another new technology which could change the laws of life. Cyborg engineering. Cyborgs are beings that combine organic and inorganic parts, such as human with bionic hands. In a sense, nearly all of us are bionic these days, since our natural senses and functions are supplemented by devices such as eyeglasses, pacemaker, orthotics, and even computers and mobile phones, which relieve our brain of some of their data storage and processing burdens. We stand poised on the brink of becoming true cyborgs, of having inorganic features that are inseparable from our bodies, features that modify our abilities, desires, personalities, and identities. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency (DARPA), a US military research agency, is developing cyborgs out of insects. The idea is to implant electronic chips, detectors, and processors in the body of a fly or cockroach, which will enable either a human or automatic operator to control the insect's movement remotely and to absorb and transmit information. Such a fly could be sitting on the wall at the enemy headquarters, eavesdrops on the most secret conversations, and if it's caught first by a spider, isn't caught by the spider, could inform us exactly what the enemy is planning. In 2006, the US Naval Undersea Warfare Center reported its intention to develop cyborg sharks, declaring NUWC is developing a fish tag whose goal is behavior control of host animal via neural implants. The developers hope to identify underwater electromagnetic fields made by submarines and mines by exploiting the natural magnetic detecting capabilities of shark, which are superior to those of many man-made detectors. Sapiens too are being turned into cyborgs. The newest generations of hearing aids are sometimes referred as bionic ears. The devices consist of an implant that absorbs sound through a microphone located in the outer part of the ear. The implant filters the sound, identifies the human voice, and translates them into electronic signal data sent directly to the central auditory nerve and from there to the brain. Retina implant. A government-sponsored German company is developing a retinal prosthesis that may allow blind people to gain partial vision. It involves implanting a small microchip inside the patient's eye, photocells, absorb light falling on the eye and transfer it into electrical energy, which simulates the intact nerve cell in the retina. The nervous impulses from these cells stimulate the brain, where they are translated into sight. At present, the technology allows patients to orient themselves in space, identify letters, and even recognize faces. Jesse Sullivan, an American electrician, lost both arms up to the shoulder in 2001 accident. Today, he uses two bionic arms, courtesy of Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. The special feature of Jesse's new arms is that they are operated by the dot alone. Neural signals arriving from Jesse's brain are translated by microcomputers into electrical commands, and the arms move. When Jesse wants to raise his arm, he does what any normal person unconsciously does, and the arm rises. These arms can perform a much more limited range of movement than organic arm, but they enable Jesse to carry out simple daily functions. A similar bionic arm has recently been outfitted for Claudia Mitchell, an American soldier who is who lost her arm in a motorcycle accident. Scientists believe that we will soon have a bionic arm that will not only move and or will to move but will also be able to transmit signal back to the brain, thereby enabling ampute to regain even the sensation of touch. At present, these bionic arms are poor replacement for our organic originals, but they have the potential for unlimited development. Bionic arms, for example, can be made far more powerful than the organic kin, making even a boxing champion feel like a weakling. Moreover, bionic arms have the advantage that they can be replaced every few years or detached from the body and operated at a distance. Scientists at Duke University in North Carolina have recently demonstrated that with rhesus monkeys whose brain have been implanted with electrodes. The electrodes gather signals from brain and transmit them to external device. The monkeys have been trained to control detached bionic arms and legs through thought alone. One monkey named Aurora learned to through thought control a detached bionic arm while simultaneously moving her two organic arms. Like some Hindu goddess, Aurora now has three arms and her arms can be located in different rooms or even cities. She can sit in her North Carolina lab, scratch her back with one hand, scratch her heart with second hand, and simultaneously steal a banana in New York. Although the ability to eat a purloined fruited resistance remains a dream, another rhesus monkey, Idoya, won world fame in 2008 when she thought controlled a pair of bionic legs in Kyoto, Japan from a North Carolina chair. The legs were 20 times Ayodhya's weight. Okay, monkey Idoya. Let's see. Monkey Aurora. Aurora. I don't think so. Okay. Locked in syndrome is a condition in which a person loses all or nearly all her ability to move any part of her body, while her cognitive abilities remain intact. Patients suffering from the syndrome have up till now been able to communicate with the outside world through only small eye movements. However, a few patients have had brain signal gathering electrodes implanted in their brains. Efforts are being made to translate the signals not merely into movements but also into words. If the experiment succeeds, logged in patients could finally speak directly with the outside world, and we might eventually be able to use the technology to read on other people's mind. Yet, of all the projects currently under development, the most revolutionary is the attempt to devise a direct two-way brain-computer interface that will allow computers to read the electrical signals of human brain, simultaneously transmitting signals that the brain can read in turn. What if such interfaces are used to direct link a brain to the internet or to directly link several brains to each other, thereby creating a sort of interbrain net? What might happen to human memory, human consciousness, and human identity if the brain has direct access to a collective memory bank? In such a situation, one cyborg could, for example, retrieve the memories of another, not hear about them, not read about them in an autobiography, not imagine them, but directly remember them as if they were his own, on her own. What happens to concepts such as the self and gender identity when minds become collective? How could you know your thyself or follow your dream if the dreams is not in your mind but in some collective reservoir of aspirations? Such a cyborg would no longer be a human or even organic, it would be something completely different. It would be so fundamentally another kind of being that we cannot even grasp the philosophical, psychological, or political implications, right? Now, another life. The next topic is another life. The third way to change the laws of life is to engineer completely inorganic beings. The most obvious examples are computer programs that can undergo independent evolutions. Recent advances in machine learning already enable present-day computer programs to evolve by themselves. Though the program is initially coded by human engineers, it can subsequently acquire new information on its own, teach itself new skills, and gain insights that go beyond those of its human creators. The computer program is there for free to evolve, and the reaction it makes could never have envisaged. Okay, envisaged, 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 envisaged. That's to imagine or conceive something. Okay, to imagine. Such computer programs can learn to play chess, to drive cars, to diagnose disease, and to invest money in the stock market. In all these fields, they might increasingly outperform old-fashioned humans, but will have to compete against each other. They will thus confront new forms of evolutionary pressure. As 1,000 computer programs invest money in the stock market, each adopting different strategies, many will go bust, but some will become billionaires. In the process, they will evolve remarkable skills that human can neither rival or not understand. Such a program could not explain its investment strategy to the sapien. For the same reason that a sapien could not explain Wall Street to a chimpanzee, many of us might eventually work for such programs, which will decide not only where to invest money but also whom to hire for a particular job, whom to give a mortgage to, and whom to send to prison. Are these living creatures? It depends on what you mean by living creatures. They have certainly been produced by a new evolutionary process completely independent of the laws and limitations of organic evolution. Imagine another possibility. Suppose you could back up your brain to a portable hard drive and then run it on your laptop. Would your laptop be able to think and feel less like a sapien? If so, would it be you and you something else? What if computer programs what if computer programmers could create an entirely new but digital mind, composed of computer code, complete with a sense of self, consciousness, and memory? If you ran the program on your computer, would it be a person? If you deleted it, could you be charged with murder? We might soon have the answer to such questions. The Human Brain Project, founded in 2005, hopes to recreate a complete human brain inside a computer with electronic circuits in the computer emulating neural networks in the brain. The project's director has claimed that if funded properly, within a decade or two, we could have an artificial human brain inside a computer that could talk and behave very much as human does. If successful, that would mean that after 4 billion years of milling around inside the small world of organic compound, life will suddenly break out into vastness of an organic realm, ready to take up shapes beyond our wildest dreams. Not all scholars agree that the mind works in a manner analogous to today's digital computer, and if it doesn't, present-day computer would not be able to simulate it. Yet it would be too foolish to categorically dismiss the possibility before giving it a try. In 2013, the project received a grant of Euro 1 billion from the European Union. I think it failed because now it is 2025 and the project started in 2007. In 2005, the time passed was almost 2 decades, and uh, nothing is in our hand like a human a digital brain. So let me search about that in uh, the Human Brain Project 2005. What happened to it? 10 years using high performance XLR supercomputers, it built infrastructure that allowed research to advance knowledge in the field of neuroscience, computing, and brain related. What went wrong and how? Okay, brain is in this way. Was it poor management or something fundamentally wrong? Science. Where is the brain in the. Okay. Failure. HBP polarized the neuroscience community, culminating in an open letter lost by nearly 800 neuroscientists, including Nobel Prize winner, calling the HBP science into question. The critics were eventually vindicated as a mediation community called for a total overhaul of the HBP's scientific goal. Why the human brain was doomed to fail? 2 years in a 1 million plus effort to simulate the human brain as in this way. Was it a poor management? So, what was wrong with the Human Brain Project, and what were the implications of how we study and understand the brain? Multi-billion-dollar brain initiative are often compared to the other big science endeavors such as Human Genome Project, but given how much of the brain is working remains mysterious, is big science the right way to unlock its mysterious and cure diseases? To brain simulation was bottom up, meaning researchers would start with the most detailed data as possible, plug it into a computer, and then observe what emerges out of simulation. But this massive bottom up approach to brain simulation, many researchers argue, is premature, is best, and fundamentally flawed at worst. A bottom up approach simulation requires that researchers enter a huge amount of detailed data, so a reasonable question to ask is where to start, which level of detail should we use for simulation. The GLP aggregated and expected his blog article to Diversity of News. Okay. So I think, what if these 1 billion euros are given to some poor country, some poor peoples? I think their life will be eventually increase. So I think the research goes in vain, right? Now the next topic is the singularity. Presently, only a tiny fraction of these new opportunities have been realized. Yet, the world of 2014 is already a world in which culture is realizing itself from the shackles of biology. Our ability to engineer not merely the world around us, but above all, the world inside our bodies and minds is developing at breakneck speed. More and more spheres of activity are being shaken out of their complacent ways. Complacent is more unique. Okay, state of self-satisfaction. Lawyers need to rethink issues of privacy and identity. Governments are faced with rethinking matters of healthcare and equality. Sports associations and educational institutions need to redefine fair play and achievement. Pension funds and labor markets should readjust to a world in which 60 might be the new 30. They must all deal with the conundrums of bioengineering, cyborgs, and organic life. Mapping the first human genome required 15 years and $3 billion. Today, you can map a person daisy within a few weeks at the cost of a few $100s. The era of personalized medicines that match treatment to DNA has begun. The family doctor could soon tell you with the greatest certainty that you face higher risk of liver cancer, whereas you don't need worry about your heart attacks. She could determine that a popular medicine that helps 92% of people is useless to you and you should instead take another pill. Fatal to many people, but just right for you. The road to a near perfect medicine stands before us. However, with improvements in medical knowledge will come new ethical conundrums. Ethicists and legal experts are already wrestling with the thorny issue of privacy as it relates to DNA. Would insurance companies be entitled to ask for your DNA scans and to raise premiums if they discover a genetic tendency to reckless behavior? Would we be required to fix our DNA rather than our CV to potential employers? Could an employer favor a candidate because his DNA looks better? Or could we sue in such cases for genetic discrimination? Could a company that develops a new creature or a new organ register a patient on its DNA sequence? Is it obvious that one can own a particular chicken, but can one own an entire species? Such dilemmas are dwarfed by the ethical, social, and political implications of the cost of immortality and of our potential new abilities to create superhumans. Such dilemmas are dwarfed by the ethical, social, and political implications, right? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, government medical government medical programs throughout the world, national health insurance programs, and national constitutions worldwide recognize that a human society ought to give all its members fair medical treatment and keep them in relatively good health. It was all well and good as long as medicine was chiefly concerned with preventing illness and healing the sick. What might happen once medicine becomes preoccupied with enhancing human abilities? Would all humans be entitled to such enhanced abilities, or would there be a new superhuman elite? Our led, our led, our led modern world prides itself on recognizing for the first time in history the basic equality for all humans. Yet it might be poised to create the most unequal of all societies. Throughout history, the upper class always claimed to be smarter, stronger, and generally better than the class. They were usually deluding themselves. A baby born to a poor peasant was likely to be as intelligent as the crown prince. With the help of new medical capabilities, the pretensions of the upper class might soon become an objective reality. This is not science fiction. Most science fiction plots describe a world in which sapiens identical to us enjoy superior technology such as light speed spaceships and laser guns. The ethical and political dilemmas central to those plots are taken from our own world, and they merely recreate our emotional and social tension against a futuristic backdrop. Yet, the real potential of future technologies to change Homo sapiens itself, including our emotions and desires, and not merely our vehicles and weapons. What is a spaceship? What is a spaceship compared to an eternally young cyborg who does not breed and has no sexuality, who can share thoughts directly with other beings, whose abilities to focus and remember are 1,000 times greater than our own, and who is never angry or sad but has emotions and desires that we cannot begin to imagine? Okay, science fiction rarely describes such a future because an accurate description is by definition incomprehensible. Producing a film about the life of some super cyborg akin to producing Hamlet for an audience of Neanderthals. Indeed, the future masters of the world will probably be more different from us than we are from Neanderthals. Whereas we and the Neanderthals are at least humans, our inheritors will be godlike. Okay, physicists define the Big Bang as a singularity. It is a point at which all the known laws of nature did not exist. Time too did not exist. It is thus meaningless to say that anything existed before the Big Bang. We may be fast approaching a new singularity when all the concepts that give meaning to our world, me, you, man, woman, love, and hate, will become irrelevant. Anything happen beyond that point is meaningless to us. Okay, so many different philosophies, so many different psychology. Would philosophy or nationalism would occur if our entire human being or our entire human species is being changed to cyborgs or any other species that we can never imagine, right? Okay, now the next topic is the Frankenstein prophecy. In 1818, Mark Shelley published Frankenstein, the story of a scientist who tries to create a superior being and instead creates a monster. In the last 2 centuries, this story has been told over and over again in countless variations. It has become a central pillar of our new scientific mythology. At first sight, the Frankenstein story appeared to warn us that if we try to play God and engineer life, we will be punished severely. Yet the story has a deeper meaning. The Frankenstein myth confronts Homo sapiens with the fact that the last days are fast approaching unless some nuclear or ecological catastrophe destroys us first. The pace of technological development will soon lead to the replacement of Homo sapiens by completely different beings who possess not only different physics but also very different cognitive and emotional worlds. This is something most sapiens find extremely disconcerting. We like to believe that in the future, people just like us will travel from planet to planet in fast spaceships. We don't like to contemplate the possibility that in the future, beings with emotions and identities like ours will no longer exist, and our places will be taken by aliens life forms whose abilities dwarf our own. Okay, we see comfort in the fantasy that Dr. Frankenstein can create only terrible monsters whom we would have to destroy in order to save the world. We like to tell the story that way because it implies that we are the best of all beings, that there never was and never will be something better than us. Any attempt to improve us will inevitably fail because even if our bodies might be improved, you cannot touch the human spirit. We could have hard time swallowing the fact that scientists could engineer spirit as well as body, and that future doctor Frankenstein could therefore create something truly superior to us, something that will look at us as condescendingly as we look at the Neanderthals. Okay, we cannot be certain whether today's Frankensteins will indeed fulfill this prophecy. The future is unknown, and it would be surprising if the forecast of the last few pages were realized in full. History teaches us that what seems to be just around the corner may never materialize due to unforeseen dangers, and that other unimagined series will in fact come to pass. When the nuclear age erupted in 1940s, many forecasts were made about the future nuclear world of the year 2000. When Sputnik and Apollo 11 fired the imagination of the world, everyone began predicting that by the end of century, people would be living in space colonies on Mars and Pluto. Few of these forecasts came true. On the other hand, nobody foresee the internet. So don't go out just yet to buy liability insurance or to indemnify you against lawsuits filed by digital beings. The above fantasies or nightmares are just stimulants for your imaginations. What we should take seriously is the idea that the next stage of history will include not only technological and organizational transformations, but also fundamental transformations in human consciousness and identity. And these could be transformations so fundamental that they will carry the very human into question. How long do we have? No one really knows. As already mentioned, some say that by 2050 a human will already be a mortal. Less radical forecasts speak of the next century or the next millennium. Yet from the perspective of 70,000 years of sapiens history, what are a few centuries? If the curtain is indeed about to drop on sapiens history, we members of one of its final generations should devote some time to answering one last question. What do we want to become? What do we want to become? This question, sometimes known as the human enhancement question, dwarfs the debates that currently preoccupies politicians, philosophers, scholars, and ordinary people. After all, today's debate between today's religions, ideologies, nations, and classes will in all likelihood disappear along with Homo sapiens. If our successors indeed function on a different level of consciousness, or perhaps possesses something beyond consciousness that we cannot even conceive, it seems doubtful that Christianity or Islam will be of interest to them, that their social organization could be communist or capitalist, or that their gender could be male or female. And yet, the great debates of history are important because at least the first generation of these gods would be shaped by the cultural ideas of their human designers. Would they be created in the image of capitalism, of Islam, or feminism? The answer to this question might send them churning in an entirely different direction. Most people prefer not to think about it. Even the field of bioethics prefer to address another question: what is it forbidden to do? Is it acceptable to carry out genetic experiments on living human beings, on aborted fetuses, on stem cells? Is it ethical to clone sheep and chimpanzees? And what about humans? All of these are important questions, but it is naive to imagine that we might simply hit the brakes and stop the scientific projects that are upgrading Homo sapiens into a different kind of being. For these projects are inextricably meshed together with a Gilgamesh project. Inextricably. Impossible. Ask scientists why they study the genome, or try to connect a brain to a computer, or try to create a mind inside a computer. 9 out of 10 times you will get the same standard answer. We are doing it to cure diseases and save human lives. Even though the implications of creating a mind inside the computers are far more dramatic than curing psychiatric illnesses. This is the standard justification given because nobody can argue with it. This is why the Gilgamesh project is the flagship of science. It serves to justify everything science does. Dr. Frankenstein piggybacks on the shoulders of Gilgamesh. Since it is impossible to stop Gilgamesh, it is also impossible to stop Dr. Frankenstein. The only thing we can try to do is influence the direction the scientists are taking. But since we might soon be able to engineer our desire too, the real question facing us is not what do we want to become, but what do we want to want? What do we want to want? And those who are not spooked by this question probably haven't given it. Oh, afterward, the animal that became a god. Okay, now the last chapter, which is afterward, the animal that became a god. 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens was still an insignificant animal minding its own business in a corner of Africa, and following millennia it transformed itself into the master of the entire planet and the terror of the ecosystem. Today it stands on the verge of becoming a god, poised to acquire not only eternal youth but also the divine abilities of creation and destruction. Unfortunately, the sapient regime on the earth is so far produced little that we can be proud of. We have mastered our surrounding, increased food production, built cities, established empires, and created far-flung trade networks. But did we decrease the amount of suffering in the world? Time and again, massive increase in human power did not necessarily improve the well-being of individual sapiens, and usually cause immense misery to other animals. In the last few decades, we have at last made some real progress as far as human condition is concerned. With the reduction of famine, plague, and war, yet the situation with other animals is deteriorating more rapidly than ever before, and the improvement in the lot of humanity is too recent and fragile to be certain of. Moreover, despite the astonishing things that humans are capable of doing, we remain unsure of our goals and we seem to be as discontented as ever. We have advances from canoes to galleys to steamships to space shuttles, but nobody knows where we are going. We are more powerful than ever before, but have very little idea what to do with all that power. It is nice. Worse still, humans seems to be more irresponsible than ever. Self-made gold. With only the laws of physics to keep us company, we are accountable to no one. We are consequently breaking havoc on our fellow animals and on the surrounding ecosystem, seeking little more than our comfort and amusement, yet never finding satisfaction. Is there anything more dangerous than dissatisfied and irresponsible God who don't know what they want? Thank you so much. Now the Sapiens is over, and I completed the Sapiens. And now let's see what new words we learn today. Okay, peculiar, strange, and usual. Okay, proliferate to increase the spread rapidly, multiply rapidly, rampage, uncontrollable, right? Harbinger, a person or thing that signals the approach of something. Proponents, advocates, champions, or cause. Castrate, to remove testicles. Consternation, sudden anxiety. PS, deeply religious, reassurate, to bring back to life. Monogamous, having one partner at a time. Acumen, keen insight. Fiddle, okay, to tinker or cheat. Investigate, imagine, or complacent, self-satisfied, and unaware of potential risk. Inextricable in a way that cannot be separated, right? Thank you so much. And yeah, please like, share,